Hello, everyone, and welcome to the You Are Mark on the World show. I'm your host, Devin Thorpe, and our guest this afternoon is someone I think of as a dear friend, Zach Bale, who is the Chief Development Officer at Volunteers of America, Utah. Zach, welcome to the show.
Yeah, Devin, thanks for having me. This is great.
We're excited to talk to you. You're doing some amazing things. Of course, you've always been doing good work at Volunteers of America, really trying to help especially the homeless youth population in Salt Lake City especially, but along the Wasatch Front here in Utah. But I'm excited about your new facility you're building, the new homeless outreach center. What do you call it? The Homeless Youth Outreach Center?
Yeah, Resource Center.
Resource Center, excuse me. You're building a facility where you'll actually be able to house up to 30 kids every night. That just seems to me to be such an important need for our community, such a great opportunity for us to make a difference in people's lives and for us to really get people back on track before they've completely missed the opportunities that life really offers them. So tell us about this new center.
Yeah, so it's been in the works for years. We've had a drop-in center on State Street. Youth come in, and we've seen those numbers increase. And there hadn't really been an overnight shelter specifically for the 15 to 22-year-old range that we serve. And we see youth accessing some of the other services, but really the model that we found in a lot of cities, and we actually got some support from American Express to go on some cool research trips. Was a one-stop shop, youth coming to one location that they trust to meet their needs. And it's both about the basic needs, so a place you can take a shower, do your laundry, get a meal, all the way to the other end of the work that really gets them off the street, education, employment, and housing support. We'll have 30 beds of overnight shelter, and that'll be new. We worked a number of years ago to change a number of laws around harboring minors, and recently some additional laws about extending hours of just, we still need permission to serve minors. Those over 18 we can serve just as anyone. So everything's really set up. The other piece is we have a lot of partners in the community, and we just haven't had the space to host. Classrooms, office space, and we're going to have that soon. And it'll be as much as a place to collaborate. We don't do it all ourselves, but to have one spot that we can all come together is really needed.
It really just seems like such a vital community need. What's the budget for the project?
Yeah, so the budget, our campaign is a $6 million goal. The building, the hard costs of that are just shy of $4 million, a little less than that, and we're finding some ways also to get some donations of materials to reduce the cost, because then more money can go to direct service. So $6 million, and we are about a little over $5 million raised. We have $5 million, about $200,000 committed to the project, and we're live to the public, and we need the support more than ever.
So where do people go if they want to contribute to this? Let's make sure we get that in here quickly.
Great. So our website, V as in Victor, voaut.org/home for the number 4 teens. You can find a lot of information about the project. We've got some architectural renderings up on the website that are really cool to look at. It's going to be a great facility, and contact info as well. I think my information is up there, and some stats about the youth that we serve as well.
This is really an exciting opportunity, I think, because the kids are really so vulnerable at this point in their lives. Tell us a little bit about where do homeless youth come from? What creates homelessness in that age group?
Yeah. Well, so most are from Utah, of who we see, about 80–85%. The leading factor of why youth are on the street is abuse. And we hear from youth that I'm on the street because the street's safer than home. And physical abuse, sexual abuse, and generally maybe just some chaos at home. So that's number one. We also see, for youth over 18, we see youth who have been in state custody, so foster care, juvenile justice. And what we see there is, the state does a great job transitioning. And I think the best example I can give is each of us. How well did our first job go, or not so well? And if I'm the only one paying rent, the economy tanks like it did a couple of years ago, I lose my job and I can't pay anymore. So we see foster care being a big piece. And then we see, the other layers, and I think of it kind of like an onion, like there's a lot of other things. Youth who come out in their home, so about, national average is about a third of homeless youth are LGBT. Mental illness, addiction, both on the side of the youth, but we also see, parents may be struggling with that, and if they don't get adequate support, you can't be as good of a parent, and so it certainly affects the the younger kids in the home and young adults that are trying to make a go of it. So it's it's the mixture of all of that, and each youth story is kind of unique. We see many different combinations of why youth land on the street.
I guess some of the same things that impact an older homeless population or drive an older population to homelessness come into play, but it sounds like some of these are different and unique. An LGBT adult is not likely to become homeless because of that, but a youth that might be rejected, kicked out of the house, or made to feel unwelcome, right, might in fact end up on the streets just because he's LGBT, right?
It's true. Yeah, I think we see those factors, and we see both. We see some youth, for many of these reasons, being kicked out of their home. I think the other piece is often we see youth choosing to leave their home, and it could be that I'm not supported enough, or I don't anticipate getting enough support. I'm going to have to make a go of it in 6 months anyway, so I might as well start now, not knowing what the plan forward will be. And then, generally, I think the economy was rough for a while, and I think that families were trying to make a go of it and doing the best that they can, and maybe one of the lagging indicators of a rough economy is more youth on the street.
Interesting, interesting. Well, it is a tragedy whenever anyone is on the street. It's especially tragic, it seems to me, when it's a youth, especially when that youth is a victim of the kinds of things you've been talking about. So tell us a little bit more about what you're doing to help those kids. When they walk into the center, what are you doing?
Yeah, so it's a mix. So, and as I mentioned, some of it's, the provision of basic need. If youth are hungry, we're going to give them a meal. If they need a place to take a shower, and we've only had one shower for a long time, so we're excited to get a new facility. We've had one washer and dryer for 30 to 40 youth a day. It's just inadequate, but we try to meet their need in that way. And if we think of, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, you got to start there. Food, shelter, safety. Soon we'll have some shelter beds to offer. But then, getting youth off the street is a whole different, effort. And that's really around, digging into why youth are on the street. We see about 50% of the youth having dropped out of high school, usually around 10th or 11th grade. The good thing is we've seen the economy improve. There are more hiring signs now than ever. I think our youth have a real great shot at getting some of those jobs as opposed to maybe someone who's experienced homelessness for decades. And they're not prepared. They're not prepared in terms of education level. They're at times not even prepared because they don't have an ID, and they can't go and fill out a job application until we help them with that. So really digging into that. And then effort around this disenfranchisement. I think some of the hurdle for the youth is as much they don't feel that the community, that they're a part of the community, that they are valid and valued enough that they can walk in and ask for an application, and getting them to feel that. And that's how we every day welcome volunteers and staff to show up for the youth and be there. And if they had a job interview yesterday, we're going to ask them today, and we may be the only person that's checking in on them and rooting for them in life. And they need to know there's more folks out there that care.
It is tragic. That's the word that keeps coming to mind, thinking of these kids struggling with these problems. So we're so glad you're there. So glad that you're there helping to fill the gaps in our community. Zach, I want to just ask you a few questions before you go. want to draw on your expertise, your experience, your wisdom. But as you go about your life doing good, who do you look to as a role model for inspiration?
Yeah, it's a good question, and I've been thinking about it, and there's a long list. We can go down, and it would almost be which topic are we talking about, and I'll have someone. I think that's a part of it, is where we find our meaning. For me, my parents. I didn't deal with a lot of what our youth are dealing with that we serve at the center, and what I had was good fortune, support, adequate resource, encouragement. When I think about my dad in particular, who's a physician, and he talked with me a lot about the patients that he cared for, and this notion of service before self, and this drive. And I think growing up, it was a lot around and it could be at any level, but what we have, there are others that don't have as much. And what we choose to do about that is really probably what makes up our character. And so, thinking about that, we have a lot of people that do it in many different ways, serving on boards, directly working for a service agency, making donations, coming down and volunteering. But I think early on, learning this kind of foundation of if there's something you really care about in the community, once you learn, I can't not be involved. I think that would be the hardest part is, I would know that it's happening, that are the youth on the street and in the city that I was born in and love, and it's not okay. And so I think that deep-rooted drive, and then also, having had that, I think that is one of the best gifts that can be given to kids, is the support and love from their parents. So I'd have to go with that. They went out.
Yeah, that's a great reference point, and perfectly apt for the work that you're doing. As you think about your success, and you really are having success, you have become one of the prominent voices in the nonprofit community in Utah. You're well recognized, well respected. Everyone who's watching this wants to do more good, wants to have more impact. How would you advise us? How would you coach us? How would you tell us to have more impact?
Yeah. So what it makes me think about is, I had the good fortune of doing some graduate studies, and one of it was in business. And I'd mention what I do to my, it was while I was working, to my colleagues, and the reaction that would happen is, gosh, you must love your job. And I do. And it also is funny to think, well, why would you not? And so I think that, and then I think about that, and it's not necessarily what you do and are paid for all the time. I think that if one skill is really in a specific area, you should do that. And what do we do with the rest of our time? And so, I think it's about identifying our skills, what we enjoy, and sharing time. And it's, even starting at home in our families. And, a lot of the youth that we see needed a lot of support along the way that maybe they didn't get. I think it's thinking about how we can give and share, and, complex questions. One of the questions that I get asked a lot is about panhandling. And, how do we help? And it's a complex thing. I would say it's each person's personal choice. It may function a little bit like economics. There's an incentive if all of us are generous and keep giving. We'll probably see panhandling continue. And some of the money may be needed by those folks. I think the deeper level, and this is the work, is getting to know them, asking their name, wondering about their story, thinking about how we can give and we care for those around us. Around the youth topic, there's a lot of families that take in other kids for a night or a couple nights, and they're doing a lot of good for those kids that need it. And so, I think it's looking around at those key moments where we can make a difference for folks. And then I think sharing, it's really about the community connection. We collectively make a lot of good happen in the community, and we need the help. So I think it's choosing to do that. It is a choice.
Well, you've made the choice to do this as a career, and you've been doing it well and passionately for a while. Why? Why did you decide to do this?
Oh gosh, it's a good question. I think for me, so I spent time abroad and had the good fortune of being able to do that. I lived in Honduras, a country that currently has the highest murder rate. I was in the Peace Corps, which is no longer in that country, partly out of safety. And I saw crazy things. And we've seen some of the effect even on our borders and folks coming in. And they are fleeing very real challenges. They are trying to keep their kids safe when they send them across the border. The other thing that I learned was, international development work, the Western world doesn't have a very good track record. More of the projects that we've tried to do have been this kind of implementation of something we think someone needs than really what the community wanted. And I think that any development, be it abroad or be it domestic here in the United States, is rooted in the community itself wants to change and local community leaders making that happen. And so when I returned, I thought a lot about going back abroad and decided, it's really actually probably what are the needs in my own community that matter, that we create a better world in our own home, in our own community. And so the piece around youth was just this moment when I got connected with Volunteers of America, and I had this realization that, oh wait, all these youth waiting downtown at the library aren't just skipping school, but they're camping up City Creek along the Jordan River. And that's wrong. I think of in a community with such abundance, it just doesn't make sense to me that that would be going on. And so this kind of confluence of both, it should start from one's own community. We should each act and lead in things we feel passionate about. And that one, really arose. I think the early investment in our youth is probably one of the best things we can do for the community. And as much as it sounds cliche, they're the next generation. They're going to solve these other bigger challenges. And so if we can help them, and the youth of that who are experiencing homelessness are kind of this measure of how well we're doing as a community, or maybe not so well. So I think that's kind of how it all combined, and so here I am.
Well, we're glad glad you're there, Zach. We really appreciate your great work. We thank you for taking the time to be with us today and sharing your insights. Please tell us again, before you go, how people can donate to the new Homeless Youth Resource Center.
Great. So website, VOA-Utah.org. You can go directly there, or /home for the number 4teens. So VOA-Utah.org/home4teens.
Fantastic. Again, Zach, thank you very much for being with us today.
Absolutely. Thank you, Devin.
All righty. Let's do some good.